Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. Hello, everybody. We've got an exciting hour in front of us here talking to the main man at Fame, and Fame changed my life on the podcasting side, and they're the ones that produce it and organize and take all the pain out of podcasting for Larry Weidel. And so, Tom, I'm having you back on as a return guest because we're going to dig in deeper. So welcome, Tom Hunt.
It's an honor to be invited back. Have you had guests on twice before?
I have early on a couple of my closest friends, and where I knew there was tons of things we just didn't get into with them. But, I've been listening to your podcast, and I would encourage everybody who's running a business or interested in running a business to dial into your podcast, Confessions of a B2B Marketer, I guess is how you came up with that name. I don't know, but it's easy to remember. And so the B2B, business to business, and pretty clever, I might say, Tom, because as you're starting your business, you pick the brains of other people that have done it well and implement the ideas that fit you, which is how I built my business, Tom, by the way. It's just like, I somehow early on in my career, Tom, I read in a book or someone told me, it's like you beat 50% of the people by working hard. You beat another 40% by having a method to your madness, and a management philosophy, a structure, a rhythm. And you do that by watching the top people. How do the top people do it, picking up trends from them. So I was always interviewing on every Monday morning, pretty much my entire career for decades. I've interviewed the top people in our financial services business because I also had heard the thing that ideas don't care who use them, and ideas are a dime a dozen, and the people who use them are priceless. And so if someone's beating me, I had the audacity to think that it wasn't because they were better than me. I took the approach, they knew something I didn't know, and because I didn't mind working, but I hated to work on something that wasn't going to pay off. And so maybe they knew how to phrase something, explain something, visualize something, communicate something, structure something in a way that I didn't. And because nobody can know everything and nobody can figure everything out the best way at the same time, and so if people surge ahead of you, they're doing something you're not doing. They've got a different thought in their head. And so I applaud you doing that, and the results are showing up. And that's just not me and you chit-chatting here. This is something for everybody to pick up and think about adding to their business, because what it's done, your hard work has, I know a little bit about your story, but as you were interviewing recent podcast with Alan Pence, I heard, I was hearing your story in there with his story, as you start as just doing it all one man paper hanger, doing it all yourself, and you work your way up. But this has paid off for you. Things have paid off. You're running a fast growing operation. Why don't you tell people some of that growth?
Yeah. So the company started on $0 revenue. This was in December 2019, so 4.5 years ago. So as of May, our monthly recurring revenue is $314,000. So we've gone from zero to $314,000. And then just to times that by 12, so coming up on 3.8 million in annual recurring revenue in his 4.5 years, fully bootstrapped, and I'm a solo founder.
And so how much? What is that multiple? When you say 4.5 years, what is that multiple from nothing? So that's
from nothing. Yeah, I would say the growth percentage-wise was much bigger in the early years because the numbers are much lower. But I would say that there was two big jumps, and I'm going to get the graph out so I can remind myself exactly when they were. There were two big jumps. One was in the last quarter, and we can talk about why I think that was. And then the other one was so the big jump was Q3 of 2024 this year. So for us, that was basically March to April, March to May, because our quarters are messed up. And then Q1 of 2023, so that would have been September of 2023. So they were the big up levels in terms of growth.
Now, let's dial it back. When you started this thing, what gave you the audacity to think I can bootstrap this thing? I've got an idea. Why did you think this would be a good idea?
I think so. The company started, I was working as the head of marketing at a software company, and we started a podcast. And I think we got a bit lucky in that the 11th guest on the show turned out, like, basically we got chatting with our CEO and then bought our software for the whole sales team. It's like a £50,000 deal. And we probably spent about £5,000 on the podcast. And so that's like a 9 to 10x ROI. And so that big delta in like profitability on that campaign for me was like, that set off alarm bells. Like there's potential profit here.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the initial belief. And then, so very fortunately, they agreed to be the first client of Fame. I left and then they became a client. And then I think the reinforcing belief probably came from like the first 5 clients where we were maybe not able to replicate the full 9 to 10x ROI, but we were definitely getting close. And so it was really the fact that we were able to bring on clients and then make them happy that gave me the belief.
Now, were you in your previous business career, were you primarily sales? Were you management? Had you run teams? What was your experience level?
First 4 years of my career, I was project management, learning about management probably a bit, and then learning about how to write emails and stuff, so being organized basically. Then the following, so that takes up 2014, and 2014 to basically 2018 when I started Fame, I was more marketing. So it's no surprise that Fame is really a marketing people service business, right? Because I have that some understanding of managing people, then I have some understanding of marketing. And
your role now you've gone through quite a shift in the changing of your role and your daily activity and responsibilities. Talk about that. I know on your podcast, Alan went through in detail. Now, the only thing I can say about Alan is, it's easier to understand if you're in that business, level 3, level 4, level 5 of this and that and the other. But, if you're not in that world, it's just mumbo jumbo. It's like more complicated, people just, that some of those terms are not easily understood or picked up on by people who are not actually in the game, because what he was talking about, his thing is that most people never got past, $1 million in revenue. And that's pretty much, a solo practitioner, just doing everything yourself. And like only 4% ever even go beyond that. So it's, when it's important to a lot of times remind yourself when you're dealing with these other levels and other systems, it's not many people can relate to that. If you're listening, you need to realize that will make real sense to you when you get there. And it does help you to hear that in advance, which they'll hear on your podcast and all. It's just, don't worry about things you hear on Tom's podcast or even on this one that don't make sense to you at this stage. Just kind of tuck that away, because there will be a time when your vantage point in terms of growth reaches, you say, okay, now I get that, and so the exposure is good. It's good to have it internalized. But as you have gone through these steps, and I see that, you've had to make the decisions, projects, effort, expenditures of effort create results. Results don't just come in because, hey, I grew another bumper crop of, oats this year. It's like, I didn't even plant anything, look at that field, and you've got to plant before you can harvest. So talk about how you've gone on the attack with your energy and effort and focus, and how that's turned into results.
So going back to the question you asked just now about how the role has changed, and then I'll come into what I'm actually doing and how that's impacted results. If I mentioned we had the two big jumps of growth, one in 2023, one in 2024. I think the one in 2024 came because I was doing less stuff inside the company.
Yeah.
And I kind of stood back, had these three people, head of growth, operations, and account management, that were responsible really for 90% of the day-to-day running the company. Instead of me being responsible for client happiness, me being responsible for growth, me being responsible for ops, it's just, I'm not good enough to be good at all three. And so I stepped out, and then we have these three people who are all just focused on doing that one thing. And I'm just there to coach and be a consultant. And I think that's had a big impact because now they're doing a better job than I was. But then we add on to that the fact that I now can have like 80% of my time to invest in new things that could lead to growth. So I'm happy to share, probably the biggest lever I think has been LinkedIn organic content. I'm happy to share more about that, like the impact it's had and what I've invested into that.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it, because I remember that from a earlier podcast that I listened to, that because you and I were talking about using social media, here several months ago, and there was a debate between Twitter and LinkedIn, and it seemed like LinkedIn won the argument that went on after I got out of the conversation, but anyway.
Yeah, LinkedIn is, I'm trying to get Twitter to work as well. It's just not working, but LinkedIn is working better. What I've essentially done is probably taken about half my time and have just invested that into maximizing the amount of impressions I can get organically. So it's not paid, it's by creating content and then engaging with other people's content.
Two things: new content and engaging with other people's content.
Exactly right. And so let's say 5 months, 50% of my time, so 2.5 months of my time has been invested on this. So like a decent expense for the company. But the output is that we now get anywhere between 10 and I think in June it's going to be 20 million impressions on posts from my personal profile. And the output of that is that we are getting more people coming inbound that want to start a podcast. And actually the bigger impact of that is that we've roughly 10x the amount of people that want to come and work for us.
Really?
The reason for that is to make LinkedIn organic work, you want to have three things. You want to be talking about something that you are passionate about. You want to be talking about something that you're doing every day, so you're continually learning. But then you also want it to be a topic that aligns with how you make money. Now, I actually only have two. I'm talking, or the posts that get the most impressions are like the workplace culture, remote work posts. So I'm doing that every day. I'm basically responsible for the culture and leadership at Fame. I'm passionate about it, but it isn't what we sell. We sell podcasts. And so that's why it's having a bigger impact on hiring versus getting customers, because it's not aligned with what we sell. But that's fine. I'm trying to work out how to talk about more about what we actually sell in order to generate more leads, but that can come later.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because as people listen to this, they're going to reach the point, well, I'm interested now in LinkedIn, to raise my profile. And then, and I'll probably have you speak about that if you've got a business, you need to raise your profile, and the tendency for us is to hide behind the business is out there and, to try and be Oz behind the curtain, but that doesn't seem to win. You got to come out from behind the curtain and expose people to who you are as a person, where they feel like they get to know you. I'm going to have you go ahead and speak to that, and then I'll ask you the other stuff.
Yeah, I think the role of CEO is to promote the business to 3 people. Well, actually 4 people, I think. Customers, employees, potential employees, partners, and investor shareholders. And simply just being known is very valuable. And I think that's the job of the CEO. Everybody has like a group of people they have influence over. And if somebody reads a LinkedIn post and they agree with it, they align with it, and they remember you're going to be the podcast agency that they refer when their friend asks them for it. And so I think every CEO should be focused on getting just more exposure to those four groups of people.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. Commit to your personal and professional evolution with our free training video. It's designed not just as an educational session, but as a transformative journey for those bold enough to aim for the stars. This isn't just any webinar. It's a roadmap to achieving the extraordinary. It's tailored for those who dare to dream big, and yes, it is completely free. Join us in a network of ambitious professionals ready to take their careers to new heights. Secure your spot now at weidelonwinning.com, and let's unlock your potential together. Thanks for being part of this community.